Good morning, everyone. I'm Deirdre Boza in San Francisco. I'm thrilled to be joined this morning by, I think they're going to come up. There he is, Michael Saylor, the man, and Samson Mao. It is such a pleasure to have both of you. I think that this is one of our most popular live streams before it's even kicked off. A lot of anticipation. How are you both?
Awesome. Happy Bitcoin Day.
Great.
Happy Bitcoin Day, although coming off a little bit from those all-time highs. Let's jump right into it. Michael, last time you were on CNBC, you said that Bitcoin would go up forever. I want you to clarify those comments. Does anything go up forever? Do you stand behind that?
Yeah, my point is that Bitcoin's never going to be more than 21 million Bitcoin. So it's a very fixed supply. It's the only scarcity that anybody can invest in the world. Every other asset that you can buy as an inflation hedge, like real estate or stocks or gold or commodities, all of those things have a supply that's going to increase as the price goes up, but you can't increase the supply of Bitcoin. So if you look at the world currencies, they're inflating at 10% or more a year for the past 30 years, maybe as much as 14% a year. You can expect they'll keep inflating for the next 30 years. And so Bitcoin measured in currencies of the world and in currency derivatives is just going to keep going up with volatility, albeit.
Sure, but forever, Samson, nothing goes up forever. You have a fixed supply of gold as well. I mean, this sounds like something someone might say at the peak, you could argue.
Gold is not fixed, Deirdre, right? Gold is increasing in supply at 2% a year in the physical regime, and bankers can rehypothecate gold and they can print 100 ounces of paper gold for every real ounce of gold. And so Bitcoin is the dominant digital monetary network. And because it's dominant and because it's fixed, it means that it's the most reliable, highest integrity, scarcest thing in the financial universe.
It's even going up.
Does it go up
forever, Deirdre?
I'm stuck on this point. I want to hear both of you say or not say that it's going to go up forever. Samson, go ahead.
It's going up forever, Deirdre. Forever.
I mean, Michael, do you agree with that? You're going to stand behind that comment, going up forever?
Bitcoin is going up forever, Deirdre. Forever.
Guys, come on. This sounds like something someone would say at the peak. No, I mean, Michael, didn't you say before it would hit 5 million? 5 million's not infinity.
Deirdre, in Argentina, the dollar used to trade at $1 per peso. And now the dollar is approaching 200 pesos. The dollar is going up forever against the peso. The dollar's gone up forever against the Venezuelan bolivar. So a strong asset is going to go up against a weak asset forever. And since we know that nobody in the universe can create any more Bitcoin, and since we know that every political nation state is going to create more currency, it isn't really that much of a stretch to say that measured in the currencies of nation states, Bitcoin is just going to continue to appreciate.
The only reason it would stop going up forever is if central banks stop printing money. And that's not something they can do. The only thing they can do is print money at a slower pace, but they're still going to print money. Thereby, Bitcoin is going up forever. And
let me move away from, I'll make one other point. If you're trying to model the price of Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin is a function of inflation, right? If I double the amount of currency, then you've got a natural boost against a scarce asset. It's also a function of technology, right? We're building Bitcoin into every iPhone and Android phone on the planet. Like in El Salvador, they delivered it to 3 million people in 3 weeks. So as the utility of the asset increases, that drives adoption. And so if you increase the number of users by a factor of 10, if you bring 10 billionaires with $1 billion of capital each on the network, right? As you bring corporations on the network and as you improve the utility, the price just keeps appreciating for all those reasons. Even if we stopped printing any money and we had zero inflation rate, the utility of digital property that moves at the speed of light that can be programmed 1 million times a second is clearly higher than gold or higher than any other monetary asset you can hold.
And both of you have talked about Bitcoin as sort of an asset class, a store of value. But, you know, we've already got some comments from our viewers that says that perhaps Bitcoin doesn't have the kind of technological usefulness as an Ether. How would you respond to that, Samson?
Well, Ether and Ethereum is completely mutable. They can change the rules at any time. So a few months ago, they changed their monetary policy to be deflationary. So they're trying to burn Ethers to prop up the price. But to me, that's just like any central bank fiat money. Someone or some group of people, they're able to manipulate the supply. If they're able to make it more scarce, they're able to make it more abundant. It's just whoever wants to change at any given time, they can change it. I had this hard fork back when they were hacked with the DAO. That was when they actually rewrote the whole rule set and basically took the money back from the hacker, saying, you can't steal from us, we're going to change the rule. This sort of thing can't happen with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is actually immutable. And when you're trying to be money, you don't want to be immutable. You don't want to be changed, because we have this. Like, this has been human history for hundreds of years. More abundant. It's just whoever wants to change at any given time, they can change it. I had this hard fork back when they were hacked with the DAO. That was when they actually rewrote the whole rule set and basically took the money back from the hacker, saying, you can't steal from us, we're going to change the rule. This sort of thing can't happen with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is actually immutable. And when you're trying to be money,
Samson, I think you're feeding back through the system.
You don't want to be changed.
Yeah.
We have this.
You're
really weird.
I was very confused also.
You might have your Twitter open or something, and you're feeding back through our stream.
I don't think so.
You might have a YouTube. Or, you know what? It was me. I'm admitting it. I'm sorry, guys. It was me.
Deirdre's feeding back. So Deirdre, I want to take a shot at this. So
yeah, go ahead, Michael. But I also want to get, there's so much to get to though, Michael. Also, I also want you to talk about, you mentioned, its uses, if it goes into iPhones, etc. And we had that comment from Tim Cook saying that he personally, holds some cryptocurrencies, but he kind of threw cold water on the idea of Apple ever having it in its reserves. Where does it, do you think, for like major CEOs, and you're a perfect person to ask on this, Michael, does it go from sort of a personal interest to actually being on the balance sheet of multi-billion-dollar, trillion-dollar companies?
I think the most interesting thing in this year is that every public figure, every public CEO, every politician is being forced whether they're going to integrate Bitcoin into their nation state, into their currency, into their company, into their technology. That's the story. No one's asking whether they're going to integrate gold or integrate silver or integrate silicon chips, right? Bitcoin is the story. I think that over time, more and more companies are going to integrate Bitcoin into their balance sheet, and more and more companies are going to integrate Bitcoin into their products and their services and their technology.
Well, what's that inflection point? I mean, from to take a specific example, Tim Cook thinking about it personally to thinking about it in terms of his company. Like, when does that happen?
I think we had a big inflection point in March of 2020 with COVID, and that accelerated the institutional adoption of Bitcoin because it gave companies like mine a reason to buy billions of dollars of it. And I think the second inflection point is the past month, where it's very clear to every institutional investor and every mainstream company that the administration supports Bitcoin, the Senate supports Bitcoin, Congress supports Bitcoin, the Treasury Department supports Bitcoin. It's digital property. You can hold it. It's going to come into the normal regulatory regimes. And so I think a lot of people were waiting for that signal.
With a caveat, I mean, yeah, they're thinking about it, but this maybe moves us on to another topic too, of regulation, right? A lot of that is remained to be seen. And we had this infrastructure bill with the crypto provision that a lot in the ecosystem did not like, but that went through. Samson, what does that tell you?
Well, it just tells me that the regulators are going to try to regulate, and maybe it is for the goal of protecting people. I think also, if we want to talk about ETFs, I think the SEC is worried about approving a spot Bitcoin ETF because they don't want to accidentally pump the price of Bitcoin to $1 million a coin. I think if a spot ETF went through tomorrow, that would probably happen. And that's why they're testing the waters first with a futures ETF, a bit more watered down. But I think the concern is really that they don't want to accidentally pump Bitcoin to the moon.
Okay. And maybe, Michael, can you speak to the provision in the infrastructure bill? What does that mean for the community? Is that a setback?
I think that there's two ways to see the world. There's the crypto world. The crypto world would like to issue their own securities and create their own banks and create their own stock exchanges and not be subject to the CFTC, the SEC, or the Treasury Department. And they would just like to recreate the world anew. There's the Bitcoin view of the world, which is we've got digital property. All we need to do is plug it into every existing insurance company, existing finance company, existing bank, existing country, existing technology. So Bitcoin is a solution for Apple to make $1 trillion. Whereas in the crypto world, they want to rip Apple to zero and
Yes.
reinvent everything. And so I think that the bill is actually going to accelerate the adoption of Bitcoin.
Michael, which I kind of see that as sort of the evangelist believer, right? In crypto, they want to rip apart everything we have and rebuild it new in a decentralized way.
Look, my view is that Bitcoin can be paired with JP Morgan and make JP Morgan a better bank. It can be paired with the US dollar and make the US dollar a better currency. Bitcoin can be paired with the existing power structure and the existing world as we know it today and make everything better. You don't need to rip everything down and rebuild it. So I think that there's a schism here. The crypto world is about rebuilding everything. We don't want regulation. We don't want taxation. We don't want government. And there's another way to see the world, which is let's just fix the capital structure or fix the underlying foundation of the world economy with a digital asset, which is Bitcoin, and then let the world evolve to something better.
Samson, does that make Michael a true believer? I mean, a core tenet of the crypto ethos is that everything is decentralized and you cannot do this through existing traditional institutions where many people have, historically gotten a bad deal. Isn't crypto supposed to fix that?
Well, Bitcoin is the only crypto that is decentralized. And I think it's not really about tearing things down. It's about how do we live together? Like the regulation, it seems very heavy-handed, a bit poorly thought out. And I think that's just endemic to the legacy system. And, speaking as the Michael Saylor's quote unquote crypto people, I don't think that we want to tear things down. But Bitcoin cannot comply with all of these regulations and backward schools of thought. Right now, it's more likely that nation states and institutions and governments are going to bend to Bitcoin's will and comply with Bitcoin's consensus rules more than anything else. And even there, you see banks capitulating. You see nation state adoption. It's just on the precipice. We have El Salvador already, and there are going to be more. It's not going to be the other way around because Bitcoin can't negotiate. You cannot negotiate with Bitcoin.
Yeah, I guess on the other side, though, you've seen, places like China and India really crack down. Michael, do you think that when we talk about regulation and who's writing it, who's looking at it, do you think that the people on the U.S. side in the administration, like Gary Gensler, the chair of the SEC, is the right person to be looking at it, to be making regulation? Do you think that he has a good enough understanding of the market and what it needs to flourish or be safe?
I think the administration is quite qualified. And I think when they look at the world, what they see is Bitcoin is property and it should be treated as property. I think they look at stable coins and they think that stable coins should be issued by banks and be treated as money markets in cyberspace. And it should be subject to banking rules. I think they look at security tokens and they think they should be treated as securities. And I think they look at the trading and they think if you're going to trade derivatives or securities, they should come under existing commodities and securities laws. And if they do all those things, if that's the way the world looks at this, then the entire ecosystem is going to grow. Stable coins are $130 billion right now. And if JP Morgan and Citigroup start issuing stable coins, we're going to go to $1 trillion and then $10 trillion and then $100 trillion. So I'm not at all concerned about what's going on. I actually think it's going to accelerate the adoption of Bitcoin as the world's reserve asset. I think it's also going to provide a foundation for the 21st century economy that's for the good of everybody. I'm not troubled by what's happening. If you're an entrepreneur and you want to be a bank and you don't want to get a banking license and you don't want to comply with existing Treasury, CFTC, and SEC rules, then you might be concerned about them having an interest in you. But on the other hand, we have $500 trillion of stuff in the existing system, and I think it's more important that the existing banks, the existing companies, the existing countries adopt the digital asset economy than it is that they stay out of that system.
Right. So you're talking about working within the existing framework. Samson, this is, a fascinating point for you. If banks become the predominant stablecoin issuers, what happens to the existing ones like Tether and USDC?
Damn it! I had a bet with Stuart and Paulo
It
that
took us
we're going to
16
talk with
minutes
Tether. They didn't
to
want
get
to take
there.
my bet. They didn't want to take the bet. They said that it's going to be mentioned. I could have won like a Bitcoin each from them. But anyways, I think it's a question of how a central bank or a bank issued stablecoin is going to function. The reason why the US dollar has this hegemony in the world is because it's a very free money. Another nation state can adopt the US dollar as its own national currency. It's used around the world. It's moved freely around the world. There's no restrictions. But if you look at, let's just take central bank digital currencies as an example. The government of Canada, they posted a job posting to hire a developer to work on a Canadian central bank digital currency. And in the job posting, they're basically saying, we want it to be cash, but not too much like cash. So the question really is, how freely moving will a bank issued stablecoin be? Is it going to be able to be used anywhere in the world?
Right.
Is it going to be transactable by anybody in the world? Are people going to be able to extend it with new technologies like the Lightning Network or whatever? But if you look at just like the history, like it doesn't bode well for that. They're going to add a lot of restrictions. It's going to be very difficult to transport.
But as you say, history doesn't bode well. But as you and both Michael and many others would say, we are very, very early. And Michael, you seem to allude to the idea that the regulators know what they're doing and they want sort of a more legit stable coin that operates like a money market fund, right?
Deirdre, I'm an optimist, and I actually believe that Bitcoin can fix everything and that technology makes the world a better place. I'm an optimist. Gary Gensler taught a class at MIT on blockchain and money, right? Nobody in the administration understands digital technology better than him. And we've got two possible views, right? One view is, wouldn't it be nice if stable coins were used for international remittances by global multinationals? What if the US dollar was used by 8 billion people on the planet in a friction-free fashion, right? And what if the entire world economy of 100 million companies and 8 billion people all evolved to something better?
But
if we're going to evolve to something better, then governments need to adopt it and get comfortable with it, like the United States government. And the banking sector and the financial sector and publicly traded companies need to be able to handle it. And I think the objective of the administration is to bring this technology into a regulatory framework such that the entire world economy can avail themselves of the benefits of money moving at the speed of light. That's what's going on here.
I don't think anyone's arguing with the usefulness of that idea, but I guess what you're talking about, Michael, too, is trust has to be such an important component of this. If you're going to have a stable coin that is used for transactions internationally, it's going to be pegged to the US dollar. You have to be able to trust that stable coin, right, Samson?
Yeah, I think
there's what's backing it.
There's a lot of trust in Tether. But going back to Michael's point, like stablecoins are already used for worldwide commerce. I don't think it's as apparent to people in North America, perhaps. But I was in Dubai recently, and I was talking to several OTC traders there. And there's about $500 million of Tether USDT trades every day, USDT to dirham. And this is like dirhams to USDT, either in the form of cash or bank wires, etc. But there's already a massive market. You could buy a house in Dubai or apartment in Dubai with USDT. So it is already happening. I think it's just going to keep accelerating. And I think there is a huge degree of trust.
It is happening, Samson. But, you know, we're talking about two very different things here. Michael's talking about stablecoins becoming more mainstream, being issued by banks and perhaps a central bank. You're talking about the current state of USDT, or even you could choose another one, which is being used not in the mainstream sense at all yet.
Well, it depends. Like I was also in Turkey, and you know there are money changer shops there with the big Tether logo. So I think there's a wide degree of trust behind this, and the fact that they're at 70, I don't know, it keeps going up every day, $74 billion now of issuances. That just speaks volumes about how much trust there is.
I think the point here is that no one's questioning the creditworthiness of J.P. Morgan and Bank of America and Citigroup. So at the point that the regulators give a green light to major banks in the world to issue hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars of digital assets, which happened last week, at that point, you're beckoning the entire world financial system to embrace digital technology. And you'll know that we got there when Amazon moves $100 billion back and forth on digital rails. We've been locked in this nonstop debate over whether Tether is reliable for 4 years, endless debate. It's holding the industry back. And we need to get to the point where people have tens of trillions of dollars of money moving around without the debate about whether or not it's creditworthy or not.
So Tether's holding the stablecoin industry back. Is that what you're saying, Michael?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if Tether wants to be as trusted as a bank, they should get an FDIC license, and they should get an auditor, and they should publish their reports, and they should subject themselves to a regulator, just like every other bank in the Western world does it. And then they'll be treated like every other bank in the Western world. And that is what the administration is saying.
Samsung, respond to that, because I also want to let our viewers know that Bitfinex, the company, the parent company of Tether, is a major investor in your company. And I know that you've defended Tether before. So yeah, how do you respond to what Michael just said?
Oh, I think I believe in free markets, and I think the free market has already spoken. And I think Tether is very ubiquitous. And to pull a quote from
not to the extent Michael's saying. Michael's saying that it's being held back.
Let me finish. So to pull a quote from the social media and the social network, when they said, when Mark Zuckerberg in the movie said, if you invented Facebook, you would have invented Facebook, right? If the banks could have done a stable coin, they would have done a stable coin. I don't see them being able to replicate the network effects of Tether. Like they could have done that. They could have banked the unbanked. They could have let people in Turkey use a US dollar savings account. But the fact is, you can't do that. So unless they can do that with their existing system, I just don't see a way they can do it with a new system.
But to Michael's point, does Tether want to go from $75 billion market cap to hundreds of billions to potentially trillions? Does it want to be the mainstream stablecoin? Does it need an audit? Does it need a bank charter to be able to do that? Michael's sort of saying that the company that will do that, the stablecoin that is willing to do that, is going to be the one ultimately in the future that's going to be the one that's mostly used.
Well, I think we differ on opinion there. I think the freest money will win, just like the US dollar with its strong cash component and liquidity is a winner. I think a free market decided winner of stablecoins is going to win.
So Samson, let me ask you, have you seen Tether's reserves?
Yeah, I saw them. I went to the big bank vault, and Paolo dove in like the duck, Scrooge
Donald Duck or Scrooge
swam around in the dollar bills.
But no, in all seriousness, you have seen, because they're an investor in your company, I would think that you would want to see what's sort of backing it. You have seen what kind of commercial, not that you're going to tell us now, but you have personally seen what kind of commercial paper, what makes up.
No, I haven't, but nobody sees money. Like, the money doesn't really exist. They're just numbers injected into a spreadsheet. So even if Tether has money in the bank,
people do see money.
They don't see. There's no bank vault with paper bills, right? There's not that much paper.
I mean, currency. Michael, would you allow someone to invest or take a piece of your company when you didn't know what was behind that company?
No.
Deirdre,
let me make a point here, which I think is constructive. You have the crypto economy, which has been entrepreneurial and has been a bit opaque and under-regulated or unregulated for a decade, and it got to a few $1 trillion. And now you have a struggle between the past and the future, and you've got a set of institutional investors that have hundreds of trillions of dollars, and will they come into the space? You have a set of institutional companies like Square and Apple and Google and PayPal and MicroStrategy that have huge amounts of capital and technology and brand, and will they come into the space? And you have countries like the United States, right? Like El Salvador. Will they come into the space? And I think that we're going to move from the first decade, which got us to about 2 to 3 trillion. If you want to get to 30 trillion, you need to get to the point where, like, MicroStrategy buys $1 billion. We bought $3.1 billion worth of Bitcoin, okay? You can't find any entrepreneur that ever put $3.1 billion of capital into anything in the entire crypto system. And yet we're a small company. So I think the next stage is about laying the framework such that the Ray Dalios of the world will buy $5 billion of Bitcoin or $10 billion of Bitcoin. Or when Fidelity actually shifts $500 billion, right? They got 11 trillion. When they shift, they have $2 trillion worth of fixed income funds. When 25% of that flows into Bitcoin, you're going to see a different world. And you're not going to get there if you have a never-ending debate about, is that a security? Is that backed by real money? And is it regulated? And I think Gensler's point is we need transparency with regard to banks that issue digital money. We need transparency with regard to exchanges that trade securities for the public. We need transparency with regard to organizations that would issue their own securities in the crypto economy. And this stuff it's well understood in the mainstream community. Like if you're going to sell stock to the public or debt to the public, you have to file your statements and you have to go through regulatory compliance. What's happening right now is the entire crypto world is going to go through this evolution to become more compliant and more institutionalized. And it either will make it through that and grow by a factor of 10, or it will not make it through that gate and it will have its growth impaired.
Right. But the traditional system, was built in good faith and people got left behind along the way. And there's that fear that if you use the traditional systems to, make them better, that's going to turn into the same thing. I guess that's the argument of tear it all down and build it anew, right? Samson, is what's preventing us from having these sort of same issues if you're basically just inserting Bitcoin into the legacy systems and framework?
Well, I think that's probably where Michael Saylor and I disagree a bit. I don't see the future as institutional money. I see it as the other, 7-point-something billion people coming in, because Bitcoin is money for the average person. Institutions, you can have some if you want, pay market price, but I would rather see people around the world mining Bitcoin, transacting in Bitcoin, earning Bitcoin on a daily basis in this Bitcoin circular economy. And we're starting to see that in El Salvador. So it's very interesting. But Deirdre, I have a question for you. So Tether is going to publish an audit. Yeah. It's not a matter of if, it's just when. And I think it's in the coming months. So when they publish their audit, will that satiate you? Will you say, okay, Tether is fully backed, and will you let that go? Or is it always going to be this point of doubt for you? I'm just questioning.
No, it's not a point of doubt for me. I don't really doubt anything. I just would love to see what is actually behind it, what's backing and commercial paper, and not being able to answer sort of questions about where it is. I'm just the interviewer. I just ask the questions. I don't personally doubt or believe, but I would love to see an audit, and I welcome those guys back on to talk through it. It would be great to have something to point to. I would certainly applaud that is the short answer.
All right, great.
Guys, this has been such a great discussion. We found some points of agreement, some points of disagreement. We started by both of you saying that Bitcoin is going up forever. Let me ask.
Forever.
We agree on that. Forever.
It's
just a question of how fast and how is the rest of the economy going to revolve around it.
Let's do this again. Let's say a few months from now, or say a year from now, 1 year from now.
How about
where do you think
at 100K?
Going to be 100K for you, Samson?
We can do it again when Bitcoin hits 100K.
Okay. Yeah, great. Michael, are you down for that?
Sure.
When does that happen? If we just, friendly bet.
I would say before Q1 or in Q1 next year.
Okay. Got it. Michael?
Soon.
And there's no price too high that you wouldn't be buying at, right, Michael?
I'll be buying it forever.
Okay. We got a show to do, but thank you guys so much. Look forward to talking to you when Bitcoin hits 100K. Thank you. Have a great morning, guys.